And I'd like to call to order the City of Haslet's Capital Improvements Advisory Committee meeting. Today's date is Tuesday, February 27th, 2024, and the time is 6:30 p.m. And we do have a quorum present this evening. First item on our agenda for action is administration of oaths of office for places 1, 3, 5, 6, and 7. And I believe place 5 is not here tonight.
Yeah, if y'all would just stand and read them all together. Thank you. Next page. Thank you. If you will sign those and pass them back my way at some point, you are all sworn in.
Would you mind turning on your mic?
Consent agenda from our meeting minutes from February 28th, 2023. So it's been a year since our last meeting. So anybody have any comments regarding the previous meeting minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve them?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted.
Hey, all in favor of approving the minutes as written?
Wallach, and who was the second? Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Kadesch and members of the committee. My name is Mike Anderson. I'm with Belchef and Associates, and we are the city engineer for Haslet. Mayor had asked that I put together a brief overview of the CIAC just to help everybody better understand of their role in this big wheel. No, we've got the master plan done. You know, we've been working with these developments for about the last 10, 11 months. We've got 2 or 3 big projects with PRA that we're at 100%, basically 90 and 100% plans for. There's some big ticket items on those that we kind of need to see what those costs end up being. There's some projects that are hopefully with the consideration of the project this evening, we'll have some better understanding of who's paying for what, and then we can move our way into that. So I suspect he'll probably be here either at the end of March or April, and we'll start that process.
Other questions?
Where are you all harvesting your water use and sewer use numbers from?
So
The reason I ask is because you list the average of a 3-person home using 90 gallons a day, which seems a little bit high. I was just curious where you guys are getting that data from.
so the,
Yeah, I was actually going to ask a similar question because that was probably based on the larger half acre lots. Have we adjusted that? Is really what I was going to ask.
Or the other question is, are you tying into commercial with fire risers and things of that sort that have a larger draw of water to a property?
sure, the sewer is actually calculated at 3.5 times 90. The water, we actually use 125 gallons per person per day. And one of the things that we had ran with that since early 2000s when everything was half acre. And one thing that we found is comparing, what we do is we get the actual Fort Worth bills, because all of the water is provided wholesale via meters from Fort Worth. We take that and we compare that to the billing records provided by Public Works, and that's how we're calculating the consumption. One thing that we're finding is that a lot of the homes that have been built, while they use they are much smaller lots, there's a vast majority of those homes that are multi-generational. So instead of there being 3.5 people, there's more like 6. So what we found is that 120, 125 number is still a reasonable number based on the records provided to us by the city.
And where are you guys getting the data for a 3-person home?
The 3.5 people is just kind of industry standard. That's an AWWA, City of Fort Worth recommendation. Yeah, TCQ as well.
Well, that just seems low in my opinion with considering single
Would you all
families
mind
and
turning
things
your
of that
mics
sort.
on?
As a reminder, when you speak, please make sure you turn your mic on, and when you're done, turn it off.
You had a question. Your second question, I don't want to miss it, was you asked about fire risers.
Are you tying any commercial water volume into these numbers when it comes, fire risers and other things of that sort will have a bigger draw?
So what we do is the master plan, the system isn't required to provide fire protection, right? The TCQ mandates, Mr. Swinney pointed out, that we're to provide a minimum level of distribution pressure, and we have to have an available supply on hand, and there can only be a certain number of connections on a certain size line. There's no real provision for fire protection. The existing study that's in place that was adopted back in 2018 assumed that the system was going to provide 6,000 gallons per minute of fire protection, which is an inordinately high amount of fire protection for a system. And so what you have is you have lines that are 20, 24 inch in diameter to get those volumes to not only meet max day, because that's what we designed for, but that high level of fire protection. So we've gone backwards and we've said, okay, our goal is to provide, a reasonable level of fire protection, because that is important, of 1,500 gallons per minute here, and in the industrial area, 2,000 gallons per minute. And we reconfigured the system through the pressure plane reworking that was done a little bit differently through this report. And those demands are used to size the pipe, but we don't take into account that 3-hour duration from a volume perspective. In other words, we're sizing the pipe to ensure that a reasonable level of fire flow can be provided on a max day, but the volume of water is only used to size the pipe and to size the ground or elevated storage that line. Now, moving forward, and one of the things I tried to touch on but not get into the weeds on, is historically fire protection You're not, when somebody comes in and says we need a 6-inch fire line for our 12,000 square foot building, sprinkle it. Traditionally, you don't charge an impact fee on it, right? Because that line's been sized to accommodate for that. But traditionally, you guys have not charged an impact fee on fire. And that's a policy question. One of the things that we'll be bringing forward through our new analysis is, given the fact that there is no more residential growth, there are system needs that will continue to need to be addressed, and fire protection is the driver of your lines here in Haslet. That's something that you all will need to consider moving forward. You know, if you're in Frisco and you've got, I don't know what the population of Frisco is, let's just call it 150,000 people, projected to be 350, and they've got a 36-inch water line running down the street because it's serving all these people. You put a fire flow on that, it's insignificant. You talk about Haslet, where we've got, 2,000 lots ultimately, a population of between 10 and 12,000 people, and you look at the demand of the fire flow demand on a 16 or 12-inch water line, it's a big portion of that line. So that's what drives the line sizes. And then again, we've worked with this historical data through the wholesale water provider and your wholesale sewer collection folks, which are TRA, to say, okay, this is the average based on the number of connections used per person per day, and the 3.5 is just industry standard. We think that it's probably a little bit more in Haslet, just because of the multi-generational nature of things. That makes sense.
I agree. That's kind of what I was thinking, because the majority of the growth that Haslet is families, and so there's tends to be multiple people in the house.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate your response.
Well, and if you think about, moving forward, so it's real tough to find anything but a low flow toilet or low flow this, low flow that, right? Conservation is important. Conservation is built in. Yards are smaller, et cetera. So you really got down in the weeds. You probably need to make the 3.5 4.18, and the demand needs to come from 120 down to 100. It just kind of works itself out. It's just easier for us to just keep doing the 3.5. But to your point, what you're observing is true, and we'll have all the numbers here as we get into it, so you can see that information.
Well, I guess kind of tied in that well is with the commercial side of the growth, where these massive warehouses are, that there's got to be such a draw of water for these fire systems, which is why I brought up the riser.
Yes, sir.
No, I appreciate the response. Thank
Yes. Any other questions?
Would you mind turning on your mic?
Thank you for the reminder. And you said Roma's going to give us that presentation? Okay, so you're not going to cover any of that content tonight?
Sorry. I can walk anybody through it. So really, what we've got here is a collection of, through September 30th of 2023, basically aligning with the fiscal year, meters, number of meters issued, the type, whether it's residential, commercial, et cetera, where that facility is located, and then impact fees collected under supporting document 3, and eligible projects that are funded through the collection of those fees that are ongoing. And we've attempted to highlight on item supporting document number 4. Keep going down, you're doing good. Keep going. It'll say document number 4. I think you're still in 1. There you go, right there. So again, the 2018 report, which is really what this current program is running under, you'll see projects highlighted in some sort of point of design and or getting ready to go to construction. The rest of them are either on hold, they're being reevaluated, or we're trying to get some further clarification on the need, so that this projects list, you'll see a different projects list. So this project list totals, $40 million. We'll come back with a different list of projects based on the master plan and our analysis of the 10-year capital plan. And we'll cut out that portion that's eligible under the 10-year window here, and we'll present you with a new look, a new outlook. But these projects in yellow are ongoing. We know we've got to do them. We're in the process of getting those out for bid and under construction. And so basically this report saying, hey, we've had this many meter builds, we've had this many impact fees collected. We've had to remit back to the developer this many impact fees that were remitted to the developer through prior agreements by the city. And here's a track. And that way, because the whole purpose of this, you're an oversight committee, so that the developer, he comes in, or the home builder, he pays his impact fee. He deserves to know where his funds are going, and that the city is not just sitting on those funds and using those to build a road or a park, right? They have to go to an eligible project, and by law, we have to spend them in a certain amount of time and on projects that are eligible. So really, that's the goal of this presentation, or this information compiled for you this evening, is that yes, we've collected this many, and we're using them on these projects. These projects are still valid and necessary based on our land use assumptions. And if any of that changes, then we will bring that to your attention and say, you know, we need to take another look at this, or this project needs to come off, or this whole thing needs to be re-examined, so that we can start the process of implementing a new fee.
So you're currently putting the burden of these impact fees onto the developers as it sits?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
The impact fees are charged to new connections to the system, and the goal of the fee is to capture that impact to the system through that fee. That way, the only other way to do it is through increased taxes and/or water and sewer rates.
Oh, no, these developers build that cost into what they sell these houses for, so please put it onto them. I promise you that.
Now, one thing to point out, I don't know if you're familiar with this, we have a contract with City of Fort Worth that says, because we are a wholesale customer of them, that we will also pass on to that builder or that user the City of Fort Worth impact, right? Double what ours is, or whatever the number is. And, you know, because they have to do the same thing we're doing. They have to build tanks and get pipelines and ensure that those peaks can be met. So
I agree. If they're going to profit $100 million per subdivision, then they should cover that cost. Thank you.
yes, sir.
So when we consider things that have already been approved by city council for development in the city of Haslet, I don't know what that was. Is there anything that is in the work that is supported by one of these projects that are on hold?
No, let me ask that one more time for me. I'm sorry.
So is there anything that the city council has approved for development in the city of Haslet that is supported by one of these projects that are on hold?
No, all the projects that are ongoing, as far as development projects, like maybe the project that we're considering later on this evening.
Yeah. Or anything that
P&Z
we've
meeting.
approved in the past that they haven't actually started construction on?
No, sir, there's nothing that would impede the progression of those projects.
Okay, so
directly.
like Northland Phase 3 isn't impacted by this additional water line on 156 from Blue Mountain
No,
west
sir.
to County Line Road?
No, sir, and in addition, one of the things that we were able to work out with that developer was, we said, okay, we needed a line. This report called for a new line up 156, a parallel line. Well, we don't like parallel lines, right? It's just not good practice. So we were able to work with the developer and his engineer, basically take the two parallel 8s that came together at a point and oversize to get a 12 in, so that two 8-inch water lines equals a 12 as far as flow capacities go. And then rework their preliminary plat and their preliminary water design to accomplish the goal of delivering 12 inches worth of water to the location needed at Birchwood and Blue Mound Road, so that line could continue as a 16-inch line around and up to John Day Road and eventually tie into our water tower. So we look for the opportunities to pull out projects needed to support growth and work those to pay, just pay oversizing. So take advantage of the trench that's being dug and the equipment to go up one pipe size, potentially double your flow capacity for pennies on the dollar so that we could find a way to bring that $40 million down to something less, right? And that's just the eligible portion of the cost. So that capital improvements project cost is actually a lot higher than the $40 million that's eligible for reimbursement. You got to remember, you give them a 50% credit right off the top. So our goal was to take a systematic look at this at the distribution and collection system as it's constructed. You know, your system was designed and implemented for a period of 15 years under a certain design thought or the concept of it's probably better to have two smaller lines spaced equally apart as opposed to having one large line in the wrong spot, because once that large line goes down, it's no good for anybody. Split the flow, offer redundancy, et cetera. So that process and the master planning associated with that changed, and now things have kind of come back, and so we're trying to take advantage of what's in the ground now. You got a 12-inch right here and a 10-inch right here. You know, unless you want to spend $5 million to rip it all out, did a 24. Let's see if we can find a way to make a 12-inch somewhere else work and accomplish the same thing.
Or you make the developer pay the money for that.
Sure. And you kind of get into this sticky wicket of, okay, you can't double dip, right? So you can't say you're going to pay these impact fees and do this. So it's finding that balance, you know, of, okay, either pay the impact fees or you come over here and do this. And one of the things that we're finding out is, you know, as your residential growth continues to dwindle, you know, because there's just not that much land left for residential development, you know, the concept of do we even move forward with these fees, and do we just say on a case-by-case basis as you come in, you need to do this? That's a possibility too. And our plan is to bring all this back, and it's not going to be, hey, here it is. It's going to be a collective effort to say, this is what we need to do, and here's why. We've got to take a hard look at this. You've only got one shot to get things right with what you got left. If that makes sense. So, yes, sir. We have to be roughly proportional. We can't say this 5-lot subdivision has to build a 1-million-gallon water tower, right? That's not roughly proportional to their impact. So there's all those things that have to be blended together to come up with the right solution. But yes, sir, we'll present some of those options for you all to consider moving forward.
I just want to put the burden onto the developer, not on the city. Is my whole goal with that.
Yes, sir. That was our charge when we were brought back in 21, was ensure that development pays its way as it relates to all these systems that they affect. Yes, what we do, sometimes we stick it in the report, sometimes we don't. Each one of these projects, we have a detailed cost estimate that we put together that uses our database. We've got 8 other active clients besides you all that we have projects going out for bid at all times, and we monitor unit prices. And so, yes, sir, the prices that will be included in here, the costs will be up to date. Roman has a inflationary factor built in. I think it's 3%, and you also can take into account the cost of issue and interest as well. So,
when was that inflationary factor calculated?
well, what we traditionally have done in the past is just say, take this cost and inflate it 3% per year. Now, the costs that we're going to put together are based on what we're seeing public works construction as of whenever we put the cost estimate together. So it's not like we took 2019 and hoped that 3%, 3%, 3% would be the numbers that will be in there will be as of the date that Roman puts the seal.
Okay, I just know that.
During the last review, we really focused on the inflationary cost because the cost of labor, cost of materials, everything was going up
Exactly,
substantially at the time we did the last full review.
That's exactly my point. And excuses the questions I have. Is,
No, sir.
you know,
Good
being new
questions.
to this board, I just want
Yes,
to make
sir.
sure I'm fully up to speed with a lot
Yes,
of the
sir.
things that we're coming across. So.
Appreciate it, and that's what we're here for, is to help everybody make good informed decisions, right? You all make the decisions. You all have to live here. My goal is to give you the information and the tools to make the best decision you can. And I'm always here to give my recommendation, my opinions. If you don't want any of those, you can just tell me to sit there and be quiet too.
So if one of these were to come off hold right now, which one would it be? If we said we're going to do something in addition to what's already planned for 24 and 25, what would be the next highest priority based on what we see as far as development that's in front of us in the city of Haslet?
Well, I guess,
You know, because I don't know if it would be one of these $280,000 projects, or is it going to be the $2.074 million project?
well, like project number 3 on the sewer, we're in the final stages of a development agreement. We've got 90% plans from TRA, and we've got City of Fort Worth interlocal agreement back on the replacement of what ended up being a 24-inch line underneath Westport Parkway to school. So as far as pending projects, I would say that's right there. You know, it says on hold, reevaluate. Well, it's when we say reevaluate, it's, hey, this project's over here. There's 37 moving parts. We've been talking about it for 2 years. There's all these agreements and easements. Developer needs to pay this, and so that would be one that jumps off the page right now. And, you know, the eligible cost of 1.2, I think that's $3.2 million project. You're at roughly 38% of it right now. So that number's probably a little low. As the dust settles, the next developer called me today and said, hey, is that agreement going to the city council? Tell them, no, it's ready. There's some Buffalo Creek interceptor lines. We've got those, or these folks have those broke out in 2 different segments. I think that number 5 would be the portion Westport Parkway as it traverses the open fields there and comes underneath Harmon Road. That stretch is going to go. The rest of it, I think, could stay based on our evaluation of the capacity that can, the way it's constructed. Item 7 is a replacement of a line that would potentially serve additional growth on the west side of the tracks north of Blue Mound Road. What was brought in as the Laterra South project last year in December. Project didn't go anywhere, so that project gets postponed because as we take the potential Fort Worth flows to come off the city system via Project 3 we just talked about, that opens up available capacity in the city. So those would probably be the projects that you see in probably that order would come back on this list. Right?
Okay.
If that makes sense. You know, we'll do the same thing on water. Some of the big cost drivers on water, particularly along the 156 corridor, based on our modeling and the ability for us to secure that 12-inch connection through Northland and the planned 16-inch line up John Day Road as that potential property develops. We've shown that we can get sufficient water into the newly constructed Laterra elevated tank without the need for those corridor improvements. You go through and see, there's one little segment. There's right there at Blue Mound Road and 156. There's some rework in there. You know, $250,000 worth of reworking, as opposed to $6 million worth of corridor replacement. So those projects probably won't come back. If that makes sense. But I suspect we'll probably giving you a quick look here. We'll probably have that 500,000 gallon storage tank over at the Harmon Road pump station. You know, that tank's got to come out of service to be painted, rehab. That facility was built in 2010. So by the time 2030 rolls around, we'll have to have another tank just to facilitate the maintenance of that. May or may not be required to support growth, but that would be a project that I would see coming back, as well as an additional tank on the 156 pump station that we're moving forward with. So I think maybe the thing that would help everybody is when we do get our new list compiled, we'll probably we'll probably just grow this spreadsheet a little bit so everybody can kind of track what's changed, and we can talk in depth about them and help everybody understand. We'll have our master plan here, so we could say, okay, because we did this, these 3 projects went. That makes sense.
Yeah, and if we could include your perspective of priorities
Yes,
based on the development that's occurring or that we anticipate occurring, rather than just a list that we have to kind of sort that out.
absolutely.
That would
Yes,
be
sir.
helpful. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we'll go through and try to put together. The problem is you don't know what's going to develop. The good news is, your developable areas are continuing to shrink, so we should be able to recommend a priority for you. Try to rank those for you, if you will.
Any other questions? And can we pull up the letter of recommendation just so we can see that? Do one of it. Actually, you could go back to that page because the recommendation was at the bottom of that. That would be fine. Yep. Okay, is there a motion for agenda item 5.1? And this is the recommendation of City Council. And if you would like some verbiage on what the motion could look like, you could read the bottom of the page here that's in front of us.
Do we need the whole thing read?
You could just be, make a motion to recommend the City Council approve the.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we recommend to City Council that the impact fee balance be used for, the CIC recommends that the impact fee balance be used for eligible projects, and that they continue work on updating the 2023-24 impact. So,
Clarification, the eligible projects that are highlighted, is that correct?
where's? Yeah, okay, yeah, highlight.
Okay, there's a motion to recommend to City Council approval of the funds to be used towards eligible projects that are highlighted on the report. Is there a second?
Also.
Motion been second. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously.
There may need to be an interim meeting in between there, and I'll get that coordinated with Roman and make sure you all are, that's put on your calendar as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. And the time is 7:20 p.m. and we are adjourned.